Good morning and welcome everyone to this postgraduate live stream that we're running this morning, talking to you all about our MA in social work that we offer here at De Montfort University. So we're delighted that you've joined us and that you're watching. And please do engage with us throughout this live stream. So if you have questions for us that you'd like to ask, you can drop us a comment or ask us a question, and we will get around to answering those later on in the live stream. I'm going to introduce you now to our presenter, and we're going to bring them on now. So good morning, Jemima. This is Jemima Wright, and she is the programme lead for the MA in social work, and she's going to be talking to you through a series of slides, and obviously we're happy to answer any questions towards the end of the live stream. So I'm just going to bring up the PowerPoint for you now. There we go. Over to you, Jemima.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vanessa. Hi, everybody. So as Vanessa said, my name's Jemima. I'm the programme leader for the MA Social Work. So I'm going to just talk to you a little bit through these the slides that we've got around social work. And as Vanessa said, if you've got any questions at the end, feel free to post them in the comments box, and we'll get to them at the end of the session. Okay, thanks, Vanessa. So this slide we just want to talk a little bit about what social work is really. So as social workers, we're often working with some of the most vulnerable citizens in society. As a social worker, we have a massive impact on the lives of vulnerable people that we're working with, and social work as a result of that can be quite challenging, but it's also really a rewarding career. So my background is I was a social worker before I joined DMU, and I was a mental health social worker. So you can sort of see some of the types of things that we do as social workers. Within the programme team, we have a lot of social workers that have worked in various different areas of social work. We have social workers or staff members, that have worked as social workers in children's services, thinking about things like around child protection, also around foster and adoption. And we have other social workers that have worked in various other areas as well. So work in things like restorative justice practice. And as a result, we've got quite a diversity in terms of the staff members that we work with who have worked with both adults and children in social work. So as social workers, we often work with individuals and families, and sometimes that might be involving working with them to protect them from harm. But also a lot of the work that we do is about supporting people to live independently, and supporting people to develop and build on their skills they already have, and look at their strengths and how we can support them to build those strengths and make them use them as resources really, so they can develop further. Often as social workers, we also quite often act as advocates, and we can support service users and signpost services users to other services that they might require. And we often work in multidisciplinary teams alongside our health and education colleagues as well, but also with a wide range of other professionals. So you can see from the types of things that I'm talking about here that we work with a lot of different people from different backgrounds, both professionals and service users. And so one of the main skills as a social worker is around our communication skills and supporting service users to really achieve the best possible outcomes. So the title of social worker is legally restricted, and as a result of that, only people who are suitably qualified and registered with Social Work England can call themselves a social worker. So as a result, I refer to myself as a social worker, but I am registered with Social Work England, even though I'm not still practicing. And that means that I can still refer to myself as a social worker. So when you complete the MA social work at DMU, and that has to include completing both placements, we would then inform Social Work England that you are eligible for registration as a qualified social worker, and then you'll be able to register with them, providing you meet their eligibility criteria. Okay, thanks, Vanessa. So in terms of employability, there are a wide range of areas that you can work in as a social worker. I touched upon some of them earlier around child protection, and obviously my background is working with adults with mental ill health, but some social workers work with older people, what are people who experience and have learning disabilities, or asylum seekers and refugees. We know social workers that work in youth justice, and also people that will work with individuals who are experiencing physical disabilities as well, or who also might be involved in just family support with children and families. So there's a wide range of areas that you can work in with a social work qualification. And just in terms of what our social work graduates, we have a really good level of students that graduate with us who gain employment really quickly. So I have students at the moment who are just finishing their final placements, and a lot of them are already literally finishing placement and starting their first qualified post as social workers. So students have got a lot high levels of employability in terms of completing the degree and completing the degree and then becoming employable. Okay, thanks, Vanessa. So what does our programme look like? Well, we have a 2-year programme. All modules in the programme are mandatory to enable you to qualify as a social worker. And in year 1, you can see from the table here that we look at you complete your children and families module and the social work with adults modules. We also complete theories and methods, human growth and development, understanding professional practice in social work, our research methods module, values and social justice, and skills development days. So all of these modules help you to kind of build your confidence and your academic abilities around writing, understanding legislation, and how theories and methods link to the work that you're going to be doing with service users when you move into the second year, where you'll be looking at your placements. And we have 2 placements in the second year. Placement 1 is 70 days and placement 2 is 100 days. So you'll complete those in your second year, but you'll also be doing your research dissertation as part of that, part of the teaching within the second year of the programme as well. And you'll also do some additional skills development days. So those skills development days are held in year 1 and year 2. And within that module, you'll be developing some of your skills around communicating with service users, but also kind of putting some of the things into practice that we talked about from the other modules. So we have a skills development day around using the CARE Act, which we'll talk about in the social work with adults module. You have a skills development day where you attend a court session, so you're presenting in court. We have a mock court at the university, so you'll be working with a law student, and you'll be presenting in court as if you were in a children and families court, talking to a judge and being cross-examined by a solicitor as well, and you'll have that experience then of kind of what that feels like, and that the ability to be able to practice that before you go into placement. So there's some of the skills development days that we do currently on the programme. Like I said, that module runs across year 1 and year 2, so you can start building your skills and building those areas that you're going to need to develop for when you go into placement and into practice. Thanks, Vanessa. So within the course, we have a wide range of experience within the teaching team. We have a variety of registered social workers and also researchers that work within the team. So a lot of our staff who are registered social workers also do a wide range of research. So you can you'll kind of pick up on a lot of the skills and experience that we have within the team. The course is full-time. So we do recommend that you don't work more than 15 hours a week within the course. And whilst on placement, we recommend that you don't work at all. In terms of teaching, at the moment, the way that the teaching is set out is that students are in for 3 full days a week and a half day. So you're in for 3.5 days, but typically you'll be in teaching around 4 days across the course of the week. Ordinarily, students have Wednesdays off, but sometimes there are additional teaching that happens within a Wednesday. So we do expect that students are on campus or in teaching. When expected. We have a 100% attendance requirement on the course because of our registration with Social Work England. So it's really important that you kind of recognise before you join the course really that it is full-time, and so therefore it is a full-time commitment in terms of the days that you'll be expected to be on campus. And whilst you're not on campus doing the teaching, there's a high level of work that you'll be expected to do outside of teaching as well. So a lot of reading, potentially watching videos, doing some preparatory work ready for lectures as well. Another question that we frequently get asked about is sort of the timings in terms of what times we teach. So we teach between 9 and 5. We don't teach past 5 o'clock, and we try and teach earlier if possible, but it just depends on timetable and requirements. So obviously these things are subject to change depending on the timetable requirements of each year. Thanks, Vanessa. So placements is a really key part of social work training, and it's where you get to put all of the stuff that you learn in the first year into practice. So it's a really important part of what we do. We have a dedicated team who source placements for you, so you don't need to find your own placement at all. And it's really important that we use our own placement providers because they undergo checks from us at the university to make sure that they meet the correct criteria that you need to meet in order for you to meet the domains and areas of levels of expertise that you need to meet at each stage of your placement. So our placements are all full-time, And predominantly our placements are based in Leicester or Leicestershire. Occasionally we're able to source placements outside of these areas, but that can't be guaranteed. So we do say to all students that to expect your placement to be within Leicester or Leicestershire. We do try and match placements to people, depending on where you live. So we try and make sure that your commute is not too far, but again, that depends each year on what placement availability we have. So this year we've had a lot of placements within Leicester and Leicestershire that have we've been able to match quite that students kind of live quite fairly close to the placement area, so that's been quite positive. Obviously, if you're a car driver, that expands the scope of where you can be placed, and students can offer a preference about where they would be placed in terms of the area, but we can't guarantee that you'll get that placement because it depends on what placements are available each year, and that does vary. So from placement block to placement block, it depends on what placements are available, depending on what the local authorities are able to offer us. We have a lot of placements within the local authorities, so within statutory services. So that's things like child protection services or adult mental health, working in adult social care, but we also have a wide range of voluntary sector placements as well. So you might get placed in either a voluntary sector or a statutory placement, but you'll always have a contrast in placement experience in your second placement. So for example, if you've been placed in a children's placement, you might then be placed in an adult's placement for your second placement and vice versa. So we do try and make sure that there is some level of contrast between the two placements that you're offered. Whilst you're on placement, you'll be supported by a practice educator and a placement tutor. So the practice educator is a qualified social worker who works potentially within the local authority or the placement setting that you're working with, or they might be independent of that. So they're a qualified practice educator, and they're there to support you through your placement process and assess you during placement as well. So they'll be assessing your work-based skills whilst you're on placement. You'll also have a placement tutor, and that will be a member of the academic team. Ordinarily, it's your personal tutor, and they follow you through to your placements, and you'll have the same placement tutor as your personal tutor, and their role is to support you whilst you're in placement for you if you've got any academic concerns, and they'll also support you with your portfolio that you'll write whilst you're on placement as well. So you'll have a wide range of support whilst you're on placement. We also bring you back to the university. We call them recall days. So we recall students back to back to university at different periods throughout the placement to allow you to kind of discuss with your peers how you're getting on in placement, and have those kind of discussions around what you're finding challenging, what you're finding really helpful, what you're finding interesting and you're enjoying, and where you're being stretched, and where things are kind of where you're finding things are really interesting that you hadn't or challenges that you hadn't anticipated. So those recall days are really well received by students. They really enjoy them because it gives them the opportunity to talk with their peers, with the rest of the cohort, and with the academic team about how placements are going. Okay, thanks, Vanessa. In terms of funding, so there are two kind of routes to funding that you might be able to access. So we have NHS bursaries. NHS bursaries might be available for students who are residing in England. So, and that's through the NHS Bursary Authority. So the reason I put may is because we are allocated bursaries from the NHS Bursary Authority, and we have no control over how many bursaries we are allocated. We allocate those bursaries, so however many bursaries we are allocated, we allocate them based on interview scores. So what happens is the NHS Bursary Authority inform us as a university of how many bursaries were being allocated. So for example, this year we had 16 bursaries and we have 26 students registered on the course. So 10 students unfortunately were not allocated bursaries this year. Those who are allocated bursaries, they're allocated competitively, so they're based on this interview scores. So it's really important that when you do your interview and you do the different selection event tests that we have for you, so the written tests, we'll ask you to talk about your work experience, that you do your best you possibly can on those things, because that will help you in terms of whether you that will generate those scores and determine whether you're going to be allocated a bursary based on those scores. We suggest that all applicants apply for the NHS bursary. So when you've been confirmed as being offered a place on the course, we suggest that everybody applies for an NHS bursary in good time, because if you haven't, it then delays you being able to access the NHS bursary. If you're not allocated a bursary from us, the NHS Bursary Authority will let you know, and we also let you know as well. And then you're able to apply for postgraduate finance. So postgraduate loans are now available from Student Finance for postgraduate courses, and students may be eligible for a loan as a contribution towards the course and to living costs. But you can't receive both the NHS bursary and the postgraduate loan. For you to receive a postgraduate loan, you must show them evidence that you've applied for the NHS bursary and you've been declined before they're able to release the funds for student finance. And this is why it's really important that you apply for the NHS bursary when you've been offered a place, because then it just puts everything in motion, ready for if you are accepted, then great, you get your bursary. But if you are declined for a bursary, you're then able to provide that evidence to student finance, and then they can release funds for you. Thanks, Vanessa. So the entry criteria for the course, we accept applicants who have got a 2-1 or more, and if you have a 2-1, we expect you to have 6 months full-time equivalent of relevant work experience. So that relevant work experience should be within a social care setting or related voluntary work, as well as other relevant life experiences will be considered as part of that experience. So it's really important that you have really relevant work experience, and I suppose this is a good opportunity to start generating some of that work experience now, early as possible, in readiness for your application. Students have got a 2-2. They'll be considered if they also hold a postgraduate level award. So if you have another postgraduate qualification, so you have a 2-2 in your original degree, your undergraduate degree, but also hold another postgraduate level qualification, you then will have to provide 6 months work experience. Applicants who have a 2-2 but don't have another postgraduate qualification will be considered if you have 12 months work experience. That's got to be full-time work experience. So it's important that you get that work experience as soon as possible. You can make an application to us and say that you're still trying to collate your work experience. That's absolutely fine, and we will double check towards the end of the period, the application period. So around July and August, we'll be checking to see whether you've achieved the work experience that you anticipated that you'd be able to, in order to be able to be offered a place in the course. In addition, to the degree requirements, you also need to have a GCSE level English at level C, and also for any applicant where English isn't a first language, you should have an IELTS score of 7. Thanks, Vanessa. So as the social work degree involves working with vulnerable people, we're required to assess your suitability to commence work on the social work programme, and that's through the DBS process. So you must complete a DBS form before you join the course, and also you must complete the pre-entry self-declaration form, and that's for you to declare any health difficulties that you might have, or any previous contact that you might have had with social care for various reasons. It's really important that you're open and honest with us. It doesn't preclude you from joining the course. What will happen is somebody from the team will discuss any previous convictions that you might have had, or anything that you might declare on the form, and we'll talk through those things with you and then make a decision with our local authority partners about whether you're then able to join the course. Thanks, Vanessa. So I've already referred to the selection events already. So all applicants are only offered a place in the course if they're successful in the selection event. There are 3 stages to the selection event. You need to complete a written test, and that's based on a case study. You'll also need to complete your work experience statement. So it's really important that when you do your work experience, you complete this really fully and give us a really clear idea of what your work experience is, and you answer the questions really clearly on the work experience form. If you're successful in completing the work, in passing the written test and the work experience form, you'll then be invited to an individual interview, and that will be with an academic from the team and potentially a person with lived experience, or with somebody who's a practitioner in social care. Thanks, Vanessa. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. If anyone's got any questions, we'll look at them now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jemima, for taking us through those PowerPoint slides. Really informative. We've had a couple of questions that have popped through already, but if you are still watching and you do have anything, then please do pop them in the comments and we'll get round to answering them. So the first question, Jemima, is from Gerard, who wants to know, is the bursary applicable for international students?
So unfortunately, the bursary only applies to students that are resident in the UK, so it's not applicable for international students, I'm afraid.
Okay, and then we have another one here from Haruna. Just wanted to say she's not received any reply yet from application. So I'm assuming that's something for admissions, maybe, Jemima.
Yeah, that would be something that you'd need to follow up with admissions. So if you contact the admissions team, they should then follow that up. So I would suggest that you send them an email. Their inbox gets very, very busy, so apologies for that you haven't received a reply. But if you contact the admissions team, then they should get back to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I'll pop their email address. If you haven't got it, I'll pop it into the comments section so that you can pick that up with the admissions team, and hopefully they'll get back in touch with you. Let's have a quick look to see if we've got a couple of others that we can put up. So I don't know if you've mentioned that already, but just a little bit about what relevant experience are we looking for, Jemima?
Yeah, so in terms of relevant experience for the course, we're looking for applicants who have got relevant experience of working in social care sector. So a lot of our students have previously worked in areas like they might have done care work, they might have been working with people who've got learning disabilities or older adults. So they may have worked in care homes or done personal care for people in a home environment. Also, a lot of our applicants have done work, sort of youth work type activities. They might have worked as a youth worker and been involved in safeguarding as part of that. So it's really important that you've kind of your experience is related to adult or children's social care, really. Some students we have done voluntary work, so they've worked in the voluntary sector, maybe volunteering in homeless shelters or working with individuals who are experiencing drug and alcohol misuse difficulties, or maybe doing things like working for the Samaritans. So those types of things are kind of the work experience that a lot of our students have previously had. We do say that if you're not sure about whether your work experience is relevant, then please contact admissions. They will forward your email to us as the team, members of the team, and we'll be able to navigate and guide you really about whether your current experience is applicable, or whether we can suggest other work experience that might be suitable for you that you can kind of look at before you make the application to the course.
And just while we're on that as well, there's the email address to get in touch with the admissions team. So if you have got a query regarding your application or the course or any elements of how to apply, you can get in touch with them at that email address and they'll be able to give you a reply. And we've had another comment come through from Pepe, who wants to know, can a management graduate apply for social work?
Yeah, so no previous, we accept anybody's previous degree, basically. So as long as you've met the degree requirements of having a 2-1 or a 2-2 and you've got the relevant work experience, then your previous degree, it doesn't matter what your previous degree is. So we have students that have come from a wide range of degree disciplines. A lot of our students have done related or degrees that are related to social work, but that doesn't mean that if you haven't got a degree related to social work, it doesn't preclude you from joining the social work programme. But it's just important that you have that relevant work experience, I suppose, because that's really the key bit for us, really, is that we look at your relevant work experience to see whether your work experience matches with your ability then to be able to continue on the course and has that relevance, really. So you've got that kind of basic understanding of what social work is.
Okay. Brilliant, thank you. And then just this question comes through, are there any tips for balancing work, home and study?
It is a real, I'll be honest, I say this to all of our as soon as you start on the course and as part of your induction, I say to all students, it's a really busy course. It's a very intense course. And that can be quite challenging for some of our social work students. We are a really supportive team. So as our feedback is always that we have student feedback is that the staff team is very supportive and we will support you as much as possible. In terms of balancing work, home and life, I know that a lot of our students are mature students who have caring commitments and need to work quite often, and balancing that against studying. What I do say to students is that before you start on the course, really think about whether you're going to be able to manage the time commitment that is necessary for this course. It is intensive. We are basically doing everything that a BA student would do in 3 years in 2 years. So it can be quite intense. It can feel quite intensive. And the teaching period is from October to May. And then you have a break then between May and September, and then you'll start your first placement in September. And then from that, in that second year, it starts quite early on in September, and you'll be in placement from September to December. And then you start your teaching for your dissertation from January to April, and then you start your final placement from April to the following September. So it is very intense. There is a summer break between the first year and the second year. And I know a lot of students try to do a lot of paid work within that summer break to enable them to be able to finance the course as well. But I do kind of say to students, it's really important you take that time to make sure that you are able to balance homework and study, because it is quite difficult. And I appreciate that it's not an easy thing to do. I did it. I did a social work MA. It's very intense. And but like I said, there is a lot of support both within DMU, from the wider university. There's a lot of support for students, but also within the team, we are very supportive of our students, and we will support you to try and, if you are on the course and you do join us and you're experiencing difficulties, we prefer that students come and talk to us as soon as possible so we can support you to continue on the course.
Yeah, Absolutely. We've just had a question come through from Amit. I don't know if you'll know the answer to this about what the course fees for international students are. But
I'll be honest, I don't, Vanessa, at the moment, because I think they've changed, won't they, as well?
They will, but at the current fees for the last cycle were £15,100 for an international student. But as Jemima just outlined there, that is likely to probably change for next year's entry. So what I'd recommend that anybody does anyway that wants further information is to visit our course pages on the website. They will be updated with all the latest information for next year's entry. So it's just scrolling along the bottom there. You can go to that link and you'll be able to find out lots of more information as well about the course, go into more detail of what Jemima's covered today as well on her slides, and tell you things, how to apply, what are the fees, all of that will be on that page as well. Brilliant. Well, thank you everybody for your questions and for joining Jemima and myself for today's live stream, and we hope you found it useful. You can get in touch, as I say, with the admissions team if you have a question relating to your application or how to apply. And also you can get in touch with our marketing and recruitment team. If you do think of anything else after today's live stream and you would like us to pass it on to Jemima and the social work programme team, we can pass that over and they can get back in touch with you if there's something that you want to ask as well. So thank you everybody, and thank you Jemima for giving up your time to talk to everyone today. And we wish you all the best of luck with your applications, and take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Take care.